Good evening, everyone. I'm David Faltys, Superintendent of Schools for Carroll ISD. Thanks for being live with us, our first Facebook, Twitter, YouTube live. I think I've got all those covered. So we appreciate you being here this evening. I know you've got lots of questions. It's been a crazy spring and a crazy summer. And so I know you have, you've been dying to hear what the plan is for the fall. And so we hope tonight to be able to share with you some of that information. I'm going to introduce some of the guests that are here with us tonight. We have Dr. Janet McDade will be available here. She is Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, so she can talk about academics, special programs, technology, all those kinds of things. And then we also have our board president, Michelle Moore, is here as well this evening. Hello, Michelle. And as I said, she's our board president to talk about some of the board actions that we've taken to date, and then we'll go from there. So thank you all for being here this evening. And again, thank you for everyone in our community for being here this evening. Thank you for asking us to do this, and thank you for being here to do this. So let me talk a little bit about how we got to where we are. As many of you know, as we all know, we never got to come back from spring break, and we miss your kids. We miss our staff. Little did we think that we'd be sitting here, near the end of July, still not for sure how everything is going to happen. This summer, I want you to know that just like you, we've been paying attention to just about every piece of information that's out there. Not only have we been keeping in touch with our Tarrant County Department of Health, but with, listening in on the CDC discussions, obviously watching some of the national news, but primarily our state and county and more local news to see what's going on. But on top of that, we have been working very closely with our county judge's office, Glenn Whitley. He has had weekly and sometimes 3- and 4-day a week conference calls that we've been able to participate in. And we also, for a while, we're doing 3 days a week, and now we're doing 2 days a week TEA calls, Texas Education Agency, with the Education Commissioner, Mike Morath, who is a former trustee in Dallas ISD. So he knows us, knows our area. But they have been providing updates for us now twice a week. So there's been a lot of information. We talk to people at the Tarrant County Health Department regularly, if not at least weekly, but sometimes daily. We're on the phone with them yesterday. They've come to our facilities and toured our facilities to see how we're managing through some of the things we've been doing this summer. And so we have personal contacts there, and it's been nice to have them on our facility and our campuses. But given that, as you know, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks have really been interesting. We had, we were fully prepared to move forward with our parent survey. We looked at, hybrid models. We looked at kind of this combined or choices model. And then we looked at being at home virtual, and we asked our parents and our staff kind of their thoughts about that. Many of you have cited those data points. Of course, we know those inside and out as well. TEA came out and said that this hybrid model, where some kids come one day, some kids come another, might not work, that we needed to offer in-person instruction daily for students 5 days a week. So that hybrid model kind of fell by the wayside. There's still some things out there for our 9 through 12 kids, but it gets pretty convoluted, honestly. And so at that point, the Tarrant County Department of Health came out with a joint control order and said that all schools in the county needed to go remote until September 28th, which feels like a long time. We all thought we would be looking at probably right after Labor Day. They talked about that there's a potential spike after Labor Day, and so that was what the joint control order, and we were forced to comply with that. TEA rules, said that we needed to comply with that as well. Then, as you all know, how we got to where we are today, the Texas Attorney General Paxton came out with a ruling Tuesday saying that health authorities do not have the authority, if you will, to close schools and force remote instruction. As a matter of fact, TEA guideline, that ruling came out Tuesday the 28th at about noon. And TEA guidelines that came out about 3 hours later said that if you do follow the county, if the county does try to shut you down, then TEA is not going to fund you. So it forced us to re-look at what we were doing and actually go back to what we announced yesterday, is that we will be doing in-person instruction with the parent choice of allowing for remote instruction as well. So that's kind of where we are today. And with that, I'm going to ask Mrs. Moore, if you wouldn't mind chiming in and just kind of telling us where the board is right now.
All right, thank you, Dr. Faltys. It's good to be able to have this forum and to be able to speak to all of our parents and families. I know it's been a really difficult time. I could speak personally. I have 2 kids in the district, one that's going to be a senior, so I know we're all very anxious, worried, and every probably emotion under the sun that we have felt since back in March. But I can tell you that the board has been working very closely with administration to ensure that they have what they need to be successful. Everything has been changing, as Dr. Faltys shared, constantly. One day it's one thing, 2 days later it's something else. We've had actually added 3 special meetings since the beginning of June this summer to be able to make decisions quickly and be supportive of what the administration needed. A couple things I just wanted to share, and you may have seen these through social media posts or tweets, but although this coming Monday we will have a budget workshop and we will approve the budget for the next school year, we have already made the decision to give our teachers and staff a 1% midpoint raise, and also a one-time 1% payment in December. And that was really important to your trustees to be able to do something for our staff. This has been a very difficult time for them navigating this, and it's, we've been able to give raises for quite a few years. This year, obviously, with all the unknowns, we still wanted to do something, and so we're really excited that was possible. As you know, we've also recently approved classroom webcams, so that could help facilitate the Dragon Virtual Network and be able to provide that virtual instruction. So I think those are being installed. And just last week, we approved student desk shields for K through 4. So, and lastly, we did add some additional staff for our special program staff for our students with disabilities, knowing that they're going to need extra support going into the new academic year. So please know that your board wants the very best for our students. We're thinking about our kids and thinking and our families and our teachers, and wanting to make sure that we're creating a very safe environment to return back to school, to prioritize their social and emotional wellness. We know we're worried what this has all meant for them and all these changing dynamics. And so no, those are all things that we're thinking about and discussing. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Moore. And now we'll ask Dr. McDade to pop up and tell us a little bit about what school is going to look like as we know it.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Faltys. So yeah, for the fall, definitely school is going to look different. We, as both Dr. Faltys and Ms. Moore mentioned, we will be offering choice for our parents and our students. And our students and parents have the choice between 2 options, to come in person for class beginning August the 24th, or they may choose Dragon Virtual Academy, which will be online lessons from their teachers. And so, as you know, in the spring, we had to do some online learning, and that was much different than what we were used to. But we have worked very hard, and we'll be training our teachers very shortly and getting some new designs, new lessons for our teachers to be going through in the virtual academy. But we will be following the same curriculum, whether our students are in person or our students are in Dragon Virtual Academy. They will be getting the same curriculum in both platforms. Obviously, the biggest thing that you would see if your students are in person is many protocols, safety protocols that we'll be putting in place. If you have looked at our website and you've looked at the in-person safety protocols, you'll see many things where we talk about lessening the numbers of visitors on our campuses, maybe having to postpone some of our activities that you would typically see. The other thing that you'll notice that might be different for the fall is typically as we begin the school year, you're seeing Meet the Teacher nights, we're having curriculum nights, things like that. Those are obviously going to have to be adjusted and going to have to be offered in a much more virtual platform, or in like instances like we did in the spring in more of a drive-by setting to meet the teacher or things like that. And so it will look different, but we are excited to see our students again, whether it be in person or whether it be in Dragon Virtual Academy. And so we are preparing very hard, been working tirelessly to get ready to welcome our students back on August the 24th.
Great. Thank you, Dr. McDade. We'll talk a little bit about how the event's going to work this evening. First of all, questions. We did ask you to submit questions prior to the event, and we've also asked you to submit questions live in the comments, and so we will work through answering those during this hour. Questions will pop up on the stream, and if I'm able to answer them, I will. If not, we'll bring in the staff member who can best answer those questions, and we'll try to do that as efficiently as possible. The one thing I would remind you of, kind of why I told you why we're where we are now, is things are very, very fluid. I mentioned that last week we had a Tarrant County Joint Control Order, and then as of Tuesday we got the AG ruling, and then Tuesday afternoon at the end of the day we got some TEA guidelines that changed quite a bit of the information that we knew then. So it's very fluid. We continue to study, and we want to keep you as up to date as possible, but it does change often. Questions that don't make it to the live feed tonight, we're going to note those, and we'll answer them either online or through future events. We may do a Q&A or something along those lines. And then we're going to remind you that most of the safety and classroom guideline information, if you get a chance to go to our fall planning guide on the website, if you'll go to our homepage, on the scroll, you'll see the fall planning guide. Click on that, and there are lots and lots of links to go down there. Some of our health protocols are there. So I think you can find a lot of the information as up to date as possible that's on that site. So please go to the website and take a look at that information. If you have a question about where something is, don't hesitate to send us a Let's Talk or an email, or back to the Facebook question, something like that. We'll try to keep track of that as much as possible. Now we'll head into the Q&A portion of our event tonight. We do have some backstage participants, if you will. We have Taisha Nelson, she's over our special programs. We have Gina Petty, who's over our curriculum instruction. Then we have Randy Stewart, who's over technology. Some of those questions may pop up here and there. So today we appreciate the questions that you sent in. We had just over 300 questions for the event, and we tried to compile the ones that came in early. We wanted to cover as many of them as we can. Some of them are similar, but obviously there's some of them that are different. And so we'll do these questions. We tried to clump them into ones that are coming up numerous times. They come up over and over and over again. And so I know some of these are obviously hot topics for you guys as you make your decision on whether to send your kids to school or keep them in the digital virtual Dragon Virtual Academy. Sorry, DVA. But just a reminder that if we don't get to your question, then we'll be adding that as an FAQ to the Dragon Chat live page. So our first question comes in, I think, from Facebook. If we unenroll our pre-K child, is there still the October 30th deadline to re-enroll? And with that, I'll ask Taisha Nelson to jump online. Taisha? Yep. Will you start over unmuted?
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Yes, my apologies. In an effort to provide some relief to parents, we did send a letter on July 22nd, and that October 30th deadline is still in place. We do believe it's fair and reasonable to provide parents with that window of time so that they can make some decisions regarding pre-K placement. And so we will secure your seat, and we will not be inviting additional students off of the waiting list.
Great. Thank you, Taisha. All right, next question you see online, we had a lot of questions about the mask guidelines for students and staff. We are currently under a governor's order that was issued it began on July 3rd, and it is set to expire August 3rd. But right now, if someone is in our building, anyone 10 years and older, it's a requirement to have a mask. with social distancing and masking. So right now, we're going to wait until Monday, or either tomorrow or Monday, but we'll get a new order that we believe will cover the next 30 days, and we'll go from there. But right now, we were under that the governor's order to be masked at all times for anyone 10 years and older. Now, for kids that are under 10, we do have the leeway to look at what is developmentally appropriate for students. We did purchase some clear plastic, I call them trifold desk shields, similar to what you had back in the old days with science fairs, but it's a trifold clear shield that our elementary students and all of our teachers and instructional aides will have on their desks, where they can put those up and be protected from other students or staff. All right, the next question came in. We had a lot of this today. How will band and athletics work if we choose virtual learning? If you decide to do virtual learning, we have the choice as a district to decide whether or not students can participate in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. And so we have made the decision where students can participate in those. We don't want to do anything that would limit their ability to participate. So for programs like that, where students really need to be on campus, and think about things like floral design or robotics or some of those real hands-on type classes, students will be allowed, if the parent so desires, to come to class or the campus or the field or gym to participate during that either athletic or band period, or if they're doing something before or after school. Again, we'll be, masking and maintaining social distance, but those students would come up during that time. If that happened to be third block at the senior high, we wouldn't be able to provide transportation. The family would have to provide transportation, but those students would come to us if their parents wanted them to participate in those activities, and then they could get back home to continue with DVA. All right, what will the device pickup process be for students in the Dragon Virtual Academy and in person? And for that answer, I would invite Randy Stewart, our over Technology Services, to provide that answer. Hey, Randy.
Hi, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. The device deployment is scheduled to happen the week of August 17th for the Dragon Virtual Academy students. During that time, it'll happen in the carpool. Parents won't have to come into the campus like we've done in years past. Basically, they'll pull up, and the principal will be on site directing which teacher is associated with their student. The teacher will come out and hand them, at grades pre-K through 4, their iPad. This will also function as a meet the teacher time for them to get to know and be introduced to their teacher and get to see the student and the teacher for the first time. The times are scheduled in the evenings, most likely 4:30 to 6:30, something like that. We're still working out the exact times. 5th grade is similar. They'll pull up in the carpool at Durham or Eubanks Intermediate Schools, and the teachers will be there handing out their laptop, in that case, to each of the corresponding students. The in-person students will receive their devices on the first day. So as in years past, the iPads that are associated with each student in the classroom will be within the charging cabinets inside that classroom, ready for them to work on the first day. For the in-person students at 5th grade, those devices will be distributed by their teachers in class on the first day. For grades 6 through 12, the device pickup process will happen here at the admin building, but that's really only for students who are very new to the district. This is their first year. Students in 6th grade, 6th through 12th grades that have been here in the past, those students already have their laptop. So there's roughly 150 students right now that are new to the district in grades 6 through 12, and they'll come here to the drive-through at the admin building, and they'll receive their laptop. That is the gist of the process, Dr. Faltys.
Great, thank you, Randy. And I want to remind everybody, we had a couple of questions just about, hey, what if something on my piece of technology is not working, my charger, something like that. We do have a helpline, 817-949-HELP, H-E-L-P, 817-949-HELP. So don't hesitate to contact that. We have somebody keeping an eye on that line. And so if you're stressed about something, just contact them and they'll help you. They've been great. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Will school nurses be included in the back to school plans to help monitor the health of students and staff? I'm sorry, I was reading one. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. McDade, for jumping online. I'll let Janet answer that, but I will say that we have a director of nurses on staff, and she's been in most of the meetings that we've held. But with that, I'll ask Dr. McDade.
Yeah, Karen Flexer is our lead nurse for the district. And so she has been meeting with the nurses over the summer and obviously paying close attention to the guidelines that have been coming out. And so the school nurses will be very involved with the monitoring and following the guidelines that we are given either by the CDC or TEA, and ensuring that we pre-screen those that we can pre-screen coming into the campus, or that we ensure that our students and staff are pre-screening at home before coming to school. And so we will have specific plans in place for even the nurses' areas at campuses, being sure that they are very secure for any students that are experiencing symptoms, so that we don't have kind of that crossover of students that might just be having some of those more minor nurse incidences and things like that that we can take care of in the front office and things like that. And so again, Dr. Faltys mentioned at the very beginning our in-person instruction website. If you will be sure you go to that website, there is a link for the school health nurse protocols. And that's probably not the exact wording for that link there, but if you will look at that section, you'll find exactly some of those pre-screening protocols. You'll find some more information there, but they're definitely very involved and included in that back to school plan.
Great, thank you, Dr. McDade. And again, under that health protocols link, there is information about screening. The pre-screening of students will be done by parents right now for temperatures and symptoms. And so there's a lot of important information there for you to read up on. Next question we have is, how will in-person classrooms and virtual sessions be similar, and how will they be different? And then there was also questions just about even at the different grade levels. So with that, I'll ask Gina Petty to pop on and give her an opportunity to answer that. Hello, Gina.
Good afternoon. All of our classes, both our virtual classrooms as well as our in-person classrooms, will be following the same curriculum, which is what Dr. McDade had said earlier. They will be taught by CISD teachers. So there shouldn't be any worries about that. The curriculum is not going to change. It will be just taught in a different venue. For our Dragon Virtual Academy, we will be submitting an asynchronous plan. The asynchronous plan means that basically it's a self-directed curriculum. However, based upon feedback that we received from the spring, we have incorporated the synchronous model into that. So you will see a lot more teacher-based instruction in these in our class, in our blended classroom, more of a blended classroom. So what will happen is at the elementary levels, we did post some sample schedules on the website. We received feedback from those sample schedules at the elementary levels, and our principals have gone back and they have revised. So you will see that there will be fewer number of synchronous sessions as opposed to the number that we had posted. So that will help our elementary students not having to consistently get on and off on the computer. As far as our secondary, which would be grades 5 through 12, those students will be following the regular schedule that they would normally be following. So they would be having that the teacher could be providing instruction through the webcams. That would be your synchronous instruction. And then there would be time that would be provided for the students to do independent practice, or, you could do a breakout session through your Zoom, something like that. But it will be more of a blended model. So our elementary schools will basically have one teacher. They could, if for their electives, they could be logging into different teachers if they, for their music or for their art. But our 5 through 12 will follow their regular schedule. So they could have 8+ teachers that they would be going through.
All right. Thank you, Gina. We appreciate that. Also want to remind everybody that this is being recorded. We'll post it to our website. So if you missed something or weren't sure if you heard something correctly, we'll give you an opportunity to go back and revisit that or re-listen to that. And then we'll also continue to post questions and answers as we're able to add them. I do want to let you know, as I understand it, we have over 2,000 people viewing this live event on the different formats. So we do have a lot of questions. We'll try to get through as many of them as we can, but if not, we'll answer them. Like I said, we'll do a Q&A after the fact. So, all right, the next question is, what will the class sizes be for in-person instruction at the senior high? With that, I'll ask Dr. McDade to pop back on.
Sorry, my mic was muted there. So for a second. So, well, thank goodness the class sizes will not be 2,000 like you just mentioned that are watching us right now. So in-person instruction class sizes, you will see as we are watching our parents that are making their choices right now, it's about 60-40-ish on 60% selecting in-person, 40% selecting virtual academy. And so that will obviously drop the in-person class size to be a little bit smaller. And that's not me just answering this question for Carroll Senior High. That's across the district. That's looking at our percentages across the district. Obviously, we'll dig down into the data deeper as we look and pull that data on the 4th next week, next Tuesday, and can begin kind of making those class schedules. And that's the importance of that deadline of the annual student verification of next Tuesday, is so that we as a district can begin making those classes and trying to stick with, and in particular for those secondary students, they selected the courses they wanted to take and try to stick with their schedule that they selected, but needing to build those questions, those classes. And so we will not, the elementary, let me try to answer this question for anybody that's listening here. Elementary sizes, we are required to stay 22-1. And so we will not go above that for in-person, of course, and we also have to stay 22-1 in the virtual setting for elementary as well. And so if we go above that, we have to request a waiver from the state. So we'll be monitoring that for our elementary levels. But our in-person, we do expect, just based on the data that we're pulling and looking at so far, that those class size numbers will be a little bit smaller than they typically are.
Great. Thank you, Dr. McDade. Hang around. I think the next question is, if we choose virtual, when is the next option to change to in-person, and is there going back and forth?
Okay, great question. So right now, annual student verification is open. It closes on the 4th for choice. Now, TEA does allow a parent to make a change 2 weeks prior to school starting. So technically, a parent can make a change up until the 10th of August. So this is before school even starts. Parents do have a chance to make a change up until the 10th. But as I just said, it's very important for us to try to build those class schedules, that the minimum amount of changing that can happen between the 4th and the 10th, that would be most beneficial for us as a school district and campuses to try to make those schedules. And then once school starts, then students are in that platform, whether it be in person or virtual academy. They're in that for our grading period. And for us in Carroll ISD, that's a 9-week grading period. And so you have to commit to that for a grading period. And parents are able to change their mind and tell us they want a different platform, and they have to give us that notice 2 weeks prior to the next grading period. So they need to email the campus principal if they want to change their mind of the platform 2 weeks prior to the next grading period. Now, as far as going to your point or your question about changing the platforms, during the middle of a 9-week grading period, obviously, if someone has selected in person, and they got sick, whether it be related to COVID-19 or not, they would have the ability to utilize our Dragon Virtual Academy because we have the equipment, because we want the students to stay engaged. They would be able to go to the Dragon Virtual Academy and then be able to come back to in person because that was their original selection. So whatever time period they needed to be out of school for their illness, whether it be a strep got throat illness and they're out for just a couple of days, or if it's COVID related and they had to be out for 10, 14 days, whatever it might be, they could come back to in-person. But if you've selected virtual, you are staying in the virtual for that 9-week period.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, the next question is, how will special education services be provided for both in-person students and for those who choose virtual instruction? So I'll invite Taisha to comment.
Okay, thank you. Great question. So for our in-person, it will be the same as it's always been, with PPE, of course. And we've purchased disinfectants, gloves, disposable isolation gowns, face shields, clear barriers, even the masks that have the see-through face so we can see lips for our students who receive speech therapy. And our staff will also receive safety protocol training. The other option is the Dragon Virtual Academy. And if it's online, there will be a heavier concentration with the synchronous instruction, meaning the two-way instruction that's live. Our therapists have and our teachers have been trained on the telepractice teletherapy this summer. We did have the opportunity to prepare with purpose and intent so that training is there and they're ready. The third option is if a parent chooses the Dragon Virtual Academy for their student, we can also combine that with scheduled site-based services. And those would be services for students who would have occupational therapy, physical therapy, music therapy, orientation and mobility, vision services, and adaptive PE. And so we would schedule with that therapist and they would get those scheduled and they would be on site for those.
Thank you, Taisha. All right, the next question is an important one. It came up a lot. How will tests be administered in DVA to ensure that students aren't cheating or just that they're doing their own work? So I'll invite, I'm not sure, I guess that would be Gina, right? Or Randy. I don't think it's Randy.
The software system that we have to help stop cheating, we have a lockdown browser referred to as Respondus. And so when a teacher makes a quiz within Canvas, they assign that to Respondus to lockdown. When the student opens the quiz, all they can interact with is just that quiz. They can't switch to another browser to search the answers or copy and paste between other things. They get locked into that quiz for a set amount of time. Also, the teachers are trained on how to structure questions such that it's not just fill in the blank type of questions. It's more essay based. And so those questions combined with Canvas Respondus lockdown browser helps us to prevent cheating from online tests in the Dragon Virtual Academy.
Great. Thank you, Randy. And I also know that part of what we're going to be doing is creating some more project-based assessments for all kids, whether you're in person or DVA, so that we can assess their knowledge without it being something they can search on Google or something like that. So we're going to continue to monitor that. All right. Next question. For elementary students whose parents have decided on virtual learning, will these students be assigned their own virtual only classroom and teacher, or will they be looking in on a live classroom? It's a great question. We saw it a lot today. So we'll ask Gina to respond to that.
For our elementary students, once again, it goes back to what do our numbers look like. Ideally, for our elementary students, we would have a situation where we could have teachers devoted to the virtual academy. Otherwise, we will make sure that we work it in such a way so that the students are included into the classroom through the web cameras, and we will make sure that the instruction is being delivered, that they have access to all of the instruction, and there's interaction. The way that the web cameras work, it's almost like a Zoom session. So the students are able to interact with the teacher and the teacher interacts. So there's not, I know that there's been questions about if you decide to go to the virtual academy, will those students just be left out? Well, but they almost, will they not even be a part of the class? No, that is not the case. If they are in a classroom where they are participating via the webcams, they will be an active participant in that class.
Great. Thank you very much. Our next question, will the Dragon virtual academy be an option for the entire academic year? I think Dr. McDade will chime in on this, but I'll start out by saying that, it depends, right, on what it looks like health-wise, I think, for everyone, and how the virus is contained, obviously, whether there's a vaccine available at the time or whether it seems to, fade into the distance. But with that, I'll ask Dr. McDade to chime in.
Yeah, the good news is TEA said they would fund online learning all year long. So as long as the funding is there, that's the biggest concern for a district, of course, right? So the funding is there. So as long as the funding is there and we have parents that have the desire for the virtual academy, then we would continue to offer it. The discussions that we have begun to have with campus principals this week, and especially at the elementary level, because it would be a little easier to do this, is if our numbers began to really decrease, is would we then have teachers that became district virtual teachers? So for example, if our numbers in third grade got down pretty low in virtual academy, would we need to rearrange those students and have one teacher across the district for third grade to be the virtual academy teacher? And we might have to do that. We'll just have to continue looking at those numbers as parents make those choices and potentially make changes throughout the year. But yes, we will be able to continue the entire school year because we'll continue to receive funding, and as long as parents want that option.
Great. Thank you, Dr. McDade. The next question has to do with explaining the process of a teacher, student, or staff member tests positive for COVID-19. Does the whole class go into a 14-day quarantine? There were questions about the governor's guidelines maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago said that a building could be closed for up to 5 days. All those answers can be found in our health protocols that are on our fall planning guide. If you go to, I think, in-class instruction, or there's a couple of places there on a site with the health protocols. They've identified or redefined what a close contact is. They've redefined some of the symptoms. Close contact now, even though we're masking, we're maintaining social distance. If someone comes down, with a lab tested positive case, obviously we work with the health department. But there's a new definition out for close contact that means either you've been directly exposed to infectious secretions, like you've coughed or you drank after somebody used a straw or whatever. But the other one that's important is the definition says that being within 6 feet for a cumulative duration of 15 minutes. Okay, so that creates, where we have to go in and really analyze kind of what went on. We'll bring in the health department. We'll walk through that. There's tracing requirements. But if either of those occurred at any time in the last 14 days at the same time that the infected individual was infectious, which is another whole set of standards, then we're presumed infectious at least 2 days prior to the symptoms onset. And so the guidelines changed a little bit from TEA and from the health authorities. And so we will always work with the Tarrant County Department of Health. I will say there were questions last week. We submitted our fall planning guide for their review. They've come to our campuses, particularly in the in the athletics areas, and they've walked through our facilities with some of the doctors and other staff to review our practices, and we've gotten thumbs up all along. But so we'll continue to work with those officials as we get tests, because as you know, it can get really confusing at the high school if a student or staff member comes up testing positive, and to trace back through all those classes that they've been through. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Let's see. I think we're ready for the next question, right? Will the public be notified of positive cases in Carroll ISD? Yes, that is still in the requirements. So if we have a positive test, we are required to notify required to notify student families, teachers, and staff in writing of the presence of a lab confirmed case. We're also still under the requirement, and we've been under this requirement, to immediately contact our local health entity, which we have been doing. So I think I've got a link here. It's the health protocols. If you have a pencil available, I know it's under www.southlakecarroll.edu, at our website, /page/3241. So southlakecarroll.edu /page /3241. Okay, next question. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Boy, you're a quick typer, Justin. All right, our next question, how will attendance be taken for elementary and pre-K students?
So elementary attendance will be taken just like it has always been taken, whether they are in person or virtual. So it's typically like a 10 o'clock attendance time, basically, but it's still going to be recorded in our student management system in Skyward. And teachers will be responsible for that daily attendance. Now, I know the synchronous, asynchronous model on the Dragon Virtual Academy, that's where it becomes a little bit more confusing on that attendance taking. And it becomes a measurement of the interaction with the teacher. But as long as a student is logged on, engaged in that learning management student with the learning management system with the teacher daily, and turning in those assignments, and they're going to be counted present each day. But we do have to take attendance each day. And typically at our elementary time, the attendance taking is around 10 o'clock. And so we will most likely continue with that practice. We will be putting together a video for our teachers on how does that look, because it will look much different than what they've normally done. And those attendance pieces, there is a 27 page, I believe it's 27 or 30 pages of attendance pieces, attendance and enrollment for districts to follow. And so luckily we've got some great PEMS ladies on our campuses and at the district level that are helping us go through that and making sure our teachers are understanding that. And we'll make sure that we add some additional language on our website so that parents can understand the exact times and exact ways that we'll measure attendance.
Thank you, Dr. McDade. All right, and now we'll bring Dr. McDade back, and I know Gina touched on this a little bit, but Janet, can you define synchronous and asynchronous for, I know sometimes we talk in education ease, and it doesn't always make sense to people. Will you work through an explanation of that for us, please?
Sure. So synchronous instruction is basically what you and I are doing right now, because I can see you and you can see me and we can talk to each other, right? It's two-way live instruction that's going back and forth. We have that opportunity to engage with each other 2 ways live. The asynchronous is instruction where it could be a video that I've made as the teacher and I've pushed it out to you as the student. And then you have the ability at your own leisure to look at that video and then attempt whatever lesson it might be. It also might be just pushing out of assignments and a student doing their independent work time during that asynchronous time. And so synchronous is more of a one-way instructional model. But again, it can include logging on to computer-based programs and participating in that, as well as those video lessons. But the synchronous is that live instruction, that time with your teacher, that face-to-face via Zoom, because that is the platform that we'll be using as our model for the district. And that is something that we've changed from the spring. In the spring, we had 2 or 3 different types of platforms that teachers were using and that parents were trying to figure out. And so based on teacher feedback in a survey that we did back in June with our teachers, they selected Zoom as the platform. So parents, you can rest assured that will be the only platform that the teachers will be using to do their video conferencing with their students. And then the 2 platforms that we'll be using, and it's the exact same we were using in the spring and our students are very familiar with, will be Canvas for the learning management system for our students 5 through 12, and then Seesaw for our students in K through 4, pre-K through 4.
Great, thank you. All right, next, if we start out with the Dragon Virtual Academy and move to in-person after 9 weeks, will our elementary students have the same teacher? Janet?
So you know what, that is a great question. And I think Gina kind of touched on it just a little bit, is we will do our best to keep you with the same teacher But it is really going to depend. That's why right now the building of the schedules and parents getting us their choice right now is very important, so that we can try to kind of build those schedules and build those classes. But we cannot with 100%, I can't sit here and tell you today that if you change platforms for your student, that teacher might not change. Because as the numbers change, that could change. And especially when you look at the elementary level, because we have to stay 22-1. And if we continue to have our in-person numbers grow and those online numbers decrease, we're going to have to add more of our teachers back into that in-person model. And so particularly at the elementary level, there could be some switching of teachers. And so I know that's not ideal. I know that's hard. But in order to meet the demands of our families and what platform they're choosing, there could be some switching that is happening.
Okay, thank you. And then will the elementary schools still have 2 recesses so they can get outside and get some more fresh air, kind of get the wiggles out too?
Absolutely. We definitely need them to get outside, get those wiggles out. So yes, we will still be allowing them to go outside at recess. As a matter of fact, the principals, elementary principals were talking today as they were going through their schedules. I was getting some texts from them because I was in another meeting, but they were talking about recess and what does that look like? Can we still go outside as a grade level? Those kinds of questions. And so, yes, they will be going out to recess. We will still work to get those 2 recesses each day for the grade levels. As far as the time frames, those are kind of depend on the campuses and how they can work that into their schedule. And then the nice thing that we're going to be doing to ensure the safety of our students is each morning, the next morning, we will be cleaning those playgrounds. We'll be sanitizing the playgrounds because we know our community likes to come up in the evening time and use those playgrounds. And so just to ensure that extra safety measure, we're going to be cleaning those each morning.
Great, thank you. The next question we have is, will ESL classes be in person? I think we have Taisha will respond. Taisha, I think you're muted. Sorry.
The third time will be the charm. Okay. So right. Yes, our ESL classes will be available in person, and they'll also be available via the Dragon Virtual Academy.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, let's see what the next question will be. While we're here, we had several questions or requests for information about our air conditioning systems and filtration. And so I asked our Director of Facilities to just write up a little blurb, if you will. We're really fortunate to have a Director of Facilities that came to us from the hospital industry, so he really understands sanitizing and cleanliness. We do have pre and final filters on all of our HVAC systems and air handlers. We do change those very regularly. Our condensers and coils are serviced and cleaned. We disinfect those this time of year. We do use high efficiency air filters when applicable. I will say, those of you who understand this world, there's MERV ratings, there's HEPA, and there's on and on. But the higher the MERV rating, according to ASHRAE, the better the filter for trapping specific particles. We've been transitioning over the last 5 years, and during this bond program, we've actually worked on about 90% of the systems in the district, and we've transitioned from a MERV 4 rating to a MERV 8 high efficiency air filter, which is the equivalent of HEPA filtration throughout the district. This allows us to capture smaller microns of less than 3.0. And for each of those systems, so we do have to consider the appropriateness of the filter when making decisions, so that we're not counterproductive with air pressure and airflow and that sort of thing. Given that, we also use electrostatic sprayers that we'll be using to clean the classrooms and other areas when students aren't there. And they will also use those electrostatic sprayers to disinfect the air intakes on each of our systems, on the primary duct systems. We also have a couple of units in the district that actually have electrostatic particle cleaning systems in them. So hopefully that will help a little bit. We also had a few questions about PPE, and we did get some allotments from the state. I know a friend of mine is actually doing some fundraising, or I think it's a GoFundMe page, PPE for CISD, I think. I appreciate that, guys. But we did receive from TEA. We're getting an allotment from them. We have about 13,000 washable, reusable face masks, that our staff can use, or if kids need them, they will. We have 78,000 disposable face masks for our clinics. And if somebody comes to school and they just don't have one or they need one, the state provided for us 296 gallons of hand sanitizer. And then we still are to receive, I believe it's about 30,000 pairs of disposable gloves. And then the state is also sending out some face shields. They're similar to what you've seen. I've seen a few of them in town. It's the clear plastic face shield. And I think they actually say like face mask, across the top. They have a foam and a strap on them. And then we also purchased face masks for all of our staff that are sort of a neck collar type device. And then the mask actually, connects around the neck and then pops up. That way, if a teacher or staff member is talking to a student, they're not getting, kind of airflow under the mask. So it's a really nice mask. The masks are replaceable. And so we're going to do everything we can to protect our students and our staff with some of that PPE, and we'll continue to move forward with that. So we have another question coming up. This was one that's come up a lot. What are lunches going to look like at our campuses? With that, I'll bring back Dr. McDade.
All right. So our cafeteria staff, of course, is all going to be trained with the COVID-19 safety protocols. Each of our campuses have looked at the number of lunches that they offer, and they are going to try to stagger their schedule to minimize the number of students that are actually in the cafeteria and in each of those periods in the cafeteria, because we will continue to use our cafeteria. Some of the campuses are going to be adding additional lunch periods so that we can reduce those numbers as well. All the cafeteria staff will be wearing masks and gloves while they're serving the students. We additionally have screen guards that will be utilized at the point of sale. So when the students come through those pay locations, that they will be protected there as well. Students are going to also be issued, and this is students pre-K through 12, are going to be issued an ID, a picture ID, and a lanyard that they will be able to utilize in the cafeteria, so that they will not have to enter or punch in that code that they normally do in the cafeteria. That will keep that high touch area. Additionally, that this is not dealing with lunches, but while I'm talking about it, I'm going to mention it, that ID will allow them to, in the library, be able to use it in the library. Obviously, for our secondary students, they've been using it at 9 through 12 to get indoors in the building, that are the security doors that they're able to go through. So there's many other areas throughout the building that students can use those IDs for, but this is one of the areas is in the cafeteria. The desk shields that Dr. Faltys mentioned earlier for the elementary students, pre-K through 4, they're portable. And so they'll be able to carry those desk shields to the cafeteria with them to offer that barrier, because they may not have that spacing between them. And so they are very light, very portable. So they'll be able to carry those with them. We will not be offering salad bars, which we typically have at our secondary campuses. Instead, there will be prepackaged salads and things like that available for purchase. Any of, obviously, the high touch areas, seats, tables, door handles, those kinds of things will be cleaned very frequently in between lunch periods. Also, there is a new feature that we'll be offering this year, where students will be able to pre-order options to minimize that face-to-face contact in the cafeteria line and that length of time in the cafeteria line. And then when possible, food items are going to be pre-packaged and boxed to also minimize that face-to-face contact in the lunch line. So those are some of the safety pieces that we've put in place for the cafeteria.
Great. Thank you, Dr. McDade. I appreciate that. I did have a question. I'll see if I can, I may not be able to do that. There was a question about the image of the mask, but I don't know that I'm talented enough to share the screen yet. So, all right. So I think we had a flurry of questions there pop back in. Dr. McDade, if you'll remind everybody on the deadline for online verification, and kind of those decision deadlines, if you just give them those updates one more time.
Absolutely. So online verification is going on right now, and it goes through August the 4th, which is next Tuesday. And it's very important that parents complete the online verification. And one of those pieces of online verification is selecting whether or not you want your student to start in person or virtual. And I know I have a student that will be a sophomore, and I started that process one day. I went through all 11 or 12 steps, and I didn't hit that submit button at the bottom. And so it's very important that you're getting all the green checks as you go through, but that you go all the way through and you hit that submit button at the bottom so that you are completed. And you know you were completed when you get an email that says you've completed the online student verification for your child. And so you will receive an email that lets you know you have completed it. And so that deadline again is next Tuesday, August the 4th, close of business. So end of the day. And for us in the summertime, our end of the day is for in-person visitors to come in the building is 4:30. So we'd like for you to have that completed by 4:30 on Tuesday. And
so Janet,
go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question. So I've done my online verification. I've hit submit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's say I heard something tonight that makes me want to change, right? And I'm prior to the deadline. What do I do?
Absolutely. So we are asking parents to send an email to our principals, to your campus principal that says, I've already submitted. I heard Dr. McDade today. She convinced me to change my mind to X, whatever it is, the opposite of what you chose. Send an email to your campus principal letting them know you need to change that. And then we will make that change for you. It is going to be a little cumbersome for our principals. I know that I got an email today saying, hey, can we do, a little something with that? But we are going to need to get that request in writing. That is what the guidelines from TEA require, is a request in writing. So we need it to go to the principal, and then we can work to gather that data and input it back into our management system. And so that deadline to get that change is the 10th of August, which is 2 weeks prior to school starting. And that is a hard deadline. Past the 10th, we will not be able to make any changes to the platform that you choose. And that decision is for 9 weeks. Once you make that decision, you're in that platform for 9 weeks. And again, any student that might become sick, we will definitely be able to allow them to go to the virtual academy and then let them come back once they're well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, I see the clock's about to strike 7:30. I do want to say, we understand these are stressful times. This is a new situation for any of us. None of us got into the business of being educators or parents, for that matter, to consider how we do this. In the spring, somebody said it feels like you're building the plane while you're flying, and right now, does it feel like the plane's falling apart while you're flying? It's not falling apart. Everything will be okay. We'll get your kids back. We'll love your kids. We'll teach your kids. We'll take care of our staff. We'll do everything we can to make sure that people feel safe and comfortable, but also cared for, loved, and educated. So we want to continue to be partners with you to make sure that we are all kind of pulling in the same direction. And with that, I'll invite everybody back online. I know Ms. Moore, Board President, if you'd like to remind them of a couple other items.
Right. So I know we've been receiving loads of questions on all of the platforms. So know that staff and administration will compile those questions and again populate the Q&A and do and make sure that you're getting the feedback and your questions are being answered. And I also know that my inbox today is very, very full, as it is for all the school board. So please know that we are reading those emails. We may not be able to respond to everyone immediately, but we are reading those. So we do appreciate you reaching out, sharing your concerns, questions, feedback, all of it. So thank you for being part of tonight. Thank you for trusting us with your kids. We truly do love them, and we truly do want to be able to offer the best school year under the circumstances.
Absolutely. Dr. McDade?
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I echo what Ms. Moore said. We are just so privileged to be able to do this work. It has definitely been some very hard work since March, but we are dedicated to the work, and we are excited to begin the 2020-2021 school year and bring those dragons back. And we know, as our theme for this year, and it kind of started last spring, but we know we are dragon strong, and we're going to be stronger together. And so we just appreciate all of you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gina, Taisha, and Randy, and thank you, Justin, and everybody in the background to make this happen. If this worked great for you, we'll try to have another one or two of these in the near future. But as Janet said, we can't wait to see your kiddos, whether it's in person or on the screen. We had some kids come by the building today, and man, it felt great. We're in the business of educating your kids, so can't wait to see them. I know it's about to be August 1st, so have a great last day of July, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.